Good afternoon. We're going to go through two hands. These are pocket nines from, I thought from the cutoff. I guess not. So just these are two pocket nine hands that I had. Both of these are from middle position instead of the cutoff. So first player folds. It's to me. I raised the four big blinds. I raised the four because we have a poster, just to charge it, make it a little harder for him to call. Makes the decision of him to call a little bit harder. And the button calls. Now the button, I have 900 hands on him. He's 1917. His button stats, his big blind stats is he calls BPIP's 19%, pre-flop raises 8%, so 3-bet by position 7%. I guess we can look at it 3-bet by position, so or versus position. So a lot of his 3-bets you can see came from early position versus mid position players. Cutoff versus button, he's less likely to make that 3-bet, even though the percentages are higher. So it looks like he had more opportunity to 3-bet these guys. 114, 132. It's about 10% versus 14% from that later position. So I'm in like early mid position, middle position, and he just called. He didn't choose the 3-bet. So let's kind of set up what, like a 20% situation is. So, maybe like 20%, something like that. I don't know if it's going to be probably all suited aces, and I think this is probably a little bit better. That's 22%. Maybe we're going to have to dump some of these hands. Dump two of those. That's, it gets us down to 20%. So we have a hand like this, and he chose not to 3-bet. So what we're going to have to do, his 3-bet stats here, probably about 10% or so. So we're going to have to reduce this number down to about 10%. So I think his 3-bets are probably going to be queens plus. I don't know. Let's see, 3-bet range. Yeah, here's our 3-bet range. So things that he raises, it looks like his 3-bets go down to nines, pocket nines. He's got some ace suited hands. He's got a connector, suited connector. He has some offsuit connectors. So in this position, I think maybe jacks plus. Let's do the suited aces. Not all of them, just the top. And he did have a small suited ace in there, so I'm going to say he's going to raise those. Ace king is he would raise. I think he raised king jack. King jack, queen jack off, queen jack suited. So, based on what he's raising, maybe raising these, queen jack and possibly jack 10 suited. But then also, I bet ace queen raises. I'm going to guess ace jack might raise as well, and possibly king queen. And then, we have to think about what other ones does he do. Maybe he raises with these suited connectors, or maybe he just calls and instead would have 3-bet with something like those, and then you have your offsuits that you just call with. That kind of gets us down there. That's 11.3. I think we're just going to stop here. It's 9% or so. Pocket nines here are going to be doing pretty good since he just called. If he raised, I think we have to reevaluate where we're at. And we're probably, we might still be ahead, but I think we're going to be not having a super playable hand versus, high card flop. So flop comes ace, ace, deuce. At the time, I thought that this is actually not terrible for us. Two aces come out, only two aces are left in the deck, and when you think about his just calling range here, which I did, I kind of counted out, discounted a lot of these, so I kind of thought that I'm more likely ahead here than behind. And he checks, and I think that's going to be standard check for him, And the question is, should I c-bet or not? I think if I c-bet, I'm going to fold out a lot of the hands here, possibly. Or if I c-bet, he might raise and I'm going to have to fold. Now, if he raises, how likely is he to raise as a bluff? So I check to c-bet. It's only 2%. Or his check raise. It's only 2%. His raise c-bet 7%, 1 out of 15. His call c-bet out of positions 46%. I kind of think that based on this board, I think he has a lot of hands that he can likely call, including all of these pocket pairs. So I think we should have probably c-bet here, and I didn't do that. I actually just checked. So if I c-bet, I think he's calling full house, three of a kind. I think he's calling all of his pocket pair below top pair. He's going to call his flush draws. And it is entirely possible that he's going to call with his 2-card backdoor flush draws and maybe even 100% of his range. So if he calls with 100% of his range here, you can see that we're at 67%. If he limits it to 2 pair or to pocket pair below top pair and the flush draws, we're at 59%. So we're still ahead if we bet and we get called. And I think it probably would have done us more good to bet than just to check behind. Because if we check behind and he bets into us, we're going to just basically be guessing. Does he have the ace? Did he just hit a card? And, as the card here demonstrates, a 10, a jack, a queen, a king could all be problematic. Based on his range, king, jack, queen, jack, jack 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10, all of those cards, 10, 9, any of those overcards just kind of puts me at the question, is he actually betting because he has a pair, or is he betting because I showed weakness and he's just trying to buy the pot? Alright, so jack came, and lucky for me, he checks. And at this point, I'm starting to think maybe he hit that jack and he's scared of the aces. If I bet, I think at this point, I'm not sure if all of these pocket pair below top pairs are going to call. I think he probably doesn't. He'll still call with a flush draw probably, but I think he's calling three of a kind. Jack of diamonds. He's probably still calling three of a kind, full house. This middle pair, he's going to be calling, and flush draw. The gut shot, maybe. So let's see how this affects it. So if I bet here and he calls with only those hands, I'm at 14% equity. If he calls with the gut shot, we're at 20% equity. So I think this is kind of like at least if called, we're going to be in a bad situation. But look at the percentage of time that he calls. He only calls at 52%, which means he's folding 48%. So, we missed the flop bet. Now I think it's the time we can come back and bet the flop and generate a lot of folds. Now, what folds are we going to generate? I think we're going to generate the folds that we actually beat. We're going to beat all of those pocket pairs. He's going to fold those, I think. If he doesn't, if he calls with all of those weak pairs, we're at 46%. We have hands that we beat that are in his range. So I think I'm okay with the check that I made here. I do think I should have bet the flop. And then the king of hearts. So, just brutal. With nines, you get two overcards come, a jack and a king. At this point, if he checks, I'm going to have to check. I just think there's other cards. I don't think he's going to call with a small pocket pair with all of these overcards on the board. He could have a jack. He could have a king. I think if I bet and get called, then I'm behind completely. So I did check, and he shows 7-8. So did he have that in his range? He did, 7-8 suited. So I'm glad I had that in his range. I do think he raises a lot. But here, I think my mistake was that I didn't bet the flop. If I bet the flop, it is possible that he calls with the 7-8 thinking that the board doesn't hit me. And then on the jack, I could bet again, and he folds and I take it again. That's a double barrel. Or the jack comes and now I check, and then the king comes on the river. I think that's going to prompt a check. So a flop bet's going to win me more money than just checking it all the way down. So now I don't really like how I played this hand at all. All right, so this is hand number 1. Let me clear things out and get hand number 2. All right, hand number 2, middle position again, pocket 9s. This is under the gun +2. Open raises to 3 big blinds. He's playing 31-8. I don't know. I just have calls 3 bets out of position with King 10 of spades. So when we look at this player, it's only 13 hands. He's playing 31-8. He looks like he might be a little bit more on the passive size. And this is the first time that he's opened or even played early position. So I think we're going to be a little bit more conservative here. Maybe something like that. That's 11%. Could be something like that at 10%. Could be something like this at 12%. I think that's probably a suitable raise for this early position. Our pocket 9s, you can see it's kind of here. We have quite a few unpaired hands, so we're probably going to be a little bit better than 50%. Not a huge amount, so let's see what we are, 55%. So I do think we should call. Base up, we don't know anything about him folding to a 3-bet. Now let's look at the players behind us. We have 27%, calls 2-bet at 27%. We don't know much about him. Don't know much about him. We have call 2-bet 34%. We could raise, and we could probably force these people out, and then we get heads up versus this guy. And I think as a favor, that's going to be okay. We're going to increase variance, but I think position is going to help us. So I do think a 3-bet could be okay here. Probably plus EV. And plus EV because we avoid getting squeezed. Most likely player to squeeze, maybe this person, 5% 3-bet. 3-bet pre-flop, and his 3-bet range could be pocket pairs, 6-5 suited, King 10 offsuit. So calling here kind of opens us up to squeezing. I did just call, and instead of squeezing, he called, and the big blind called. So what we're going to have to do is set up these ranges. So this is under the gun +2. That's their range. I have 9 of hearts, 9 of clubs. Villain 15. Let's bring this in. He just calls. He is in the cutoff. I have 679 hands on him. He plays 30%. He 3-bets 7%. So most of the time, he's not going to 3-bet here. 3-bet versus position. So in the cutoff, or he 3-bets the cutoff, 14% 3-bets, early and middle position, much smaller amounts. So I think his 3-betting range is going to be fairly tight. His calling range, though, is at 30%. So we're going to open this up and adjust it. So that's 30%. I think we may have to take those out. We'll see if we have anything else. So called 2 bets from blind. I mean, the offsuit hands don't look terrible. So maybe we have to add more of these suited hands here. Maybe something like that. We'll leave those offsuits, but then he didn't raise, and his raising range is about 4%. So, when you think about what's a 4% raising range, it might look, something closer to that. And that's probably his 3-bet range. His 3-bet range goes down to at least pocket 7s too. So maybe pocket 7s. Maybe we'll take ace queen out of there, and that might be a little bit better. So we'll say that is cutoff's range, and especially versus a squeeze, I think pocket 7s might be in there. That's a cutoff's range, and then big blind's probably going to have a much wider range. He only had to call 2 big blinds. He's at 32% VPIP. his pre-flop raise, his 3-bet is 4%. His squeeze is 8%. What was his squeeze? So 4%. Maybe against this, maybe we'll tighten this up a little bit. I think maybe we'll do that since his squeeze percentage is actually pretty small. We'll do that. What about this guy? I think he's going to be raising about the same range. I think we're going to tighten up his 3-betting range there. We'll give him the suited kings. I think we'll give him all of the offsuit aces. I think queen 8 suited. Maybe these offsuit cards to call 2 bets and see if he flops a straight. So something wide. This is a big blind. When we calculate it, we'll give it a little bit of time and we'll see where we even out. Right now, this guy is going to be is ahead. I do expect my percentage to increase a little bit, but he has definitely higher cards, much more playable. And when we take out all of those higher cards out of these guys' range, I think makes it more likely that he may actually have those hands in his range. All right, so we've got it going, and the flop comes 10-4-3. So villain 10 checks. I think he does it with his entire range, but more importantly, it's pre-flop razor checks. So the question is, what is he going to check here? What would he have bet and raised? So let's check out his c-bet stats. Villain 3, we don't have any c-bet stats, so we're going to just have to go on the population. So in a multi-way pot, I don't expect players to c-bet their ace-high hands. I don't expect them to do their overcards. I kind of expect gut shots, open-ended straight draws to bet. I expect the pairs to bet, but maybe not all of the pairs. So pocket twos, these middle pairs that we have. We don't have any middle pairs, but the pocket pair below top pair. So anything below the tens probably checks. And then your top pair hands, I do think ace or jack 10 suited might check. Maybe not all the time. I think maybe he bets because he's got top pair. It just kind of depends on the players. I expect an overpair to bet. I expect 2 pair to bet. I expect a set to bet. I expect all those to bet. And instead, we've got basically these types of cards that check because they're not betting. So once we look at those against that range, we are way ahead. So he checks, and now it's on us. All right, so you can see pre-flop. It's this guy, this pre-flop razor is best, and maybe we should have 3-bet this because of that. All right, getting back to the flop, he checks. I do think we should bet now. We have a vulnerable hand. All right, we bet. We're hoping to get overcards to fold. We're hoping to get some of the other cards that might have equity to fold. Maybe if ace 4, king 4 will fold, ace 3 will fold. It's just going to be harder for us to play in the future. So I think we can just bet here, and if we win the pot, hey, that's fine. We'll take it. We'll take it. So I bet, and the button calls, and only the button calls. So I'm going to take the big blind out. I'm going to go back to, I'm sorry, not the button, the cutoff. We're going to copy that. We are going to paste that in. All right, so now let's check the button. I think a set just calls, 2 pair calls, top pair calls. We're going to take off the filter on here. All right. Pocket pair below top pair probably calls. He's not, maybe he doesn't believe that I have a 10. Middle pair, if a pocket pair below top pair calls, then a middle pair probably calls too. He doesn't believe that I have a 10. Same thing with a weak pair. Maybe he's hoping to take it away from me. The ace high hands, maybe, because it went check check. pre-flop razor checked, and now I bet into it. I'm pretty tight, so I don't know if an ace high hand's will call the same thing over cards. I just don't know if an over cards are gonna call. When we look at his stats, I mean, he c-bets a lot when he's in position, and his fold to c-bets is actually higher when he's out of position. He calls in position a little bit more. This could be a consequence of playing tighter. He's more likely to have good hands, so he's going to call a little bit more. That might suggest that maybe he's going to call with a gut shot, maybe he'll call with an open-ended straight draw, and I think more importantly, maybe he calls with a backdoor flush draw, but that's going to put way too many hands in his range, way too many weak hands in his range. So I think with this 2-card backdoor flush draw, I think what we're going to do is remove all but then 2-card backdoor nut flush draw, the aces, and also the kings. I think we'll include those. So that calling range, I'm at 50%. I'm at 50%. Turn was a 2 of spades. Now, how does this change his hand? So if I'm ahead, I don't think this changes it much at all. Yes, he could now complete a straight with a 5-6, could complete a straight with an ace-5, but the straight constitutes 3.73%. Pretty small situation. Should we bet or should we raise? I think it somewhat depends on the float, but we have to plan ahead, because if his turn float is high, which it is, I check. If you're checked, I expect him to bet 100% of the time. On the river, he's done it 67% of the time. So this is, I think, a player who's going to bet if I check to him, and that's kind of hard. I mean, that's a hard player to play against, I think, in my mind, because if I bet and or if I check and he bets, does he have a 10? Is he doing it just as a bluff, just to see what I have? And then if I do have, if I do call the turn, what is he going to do on the river? C-bet in positions 50%. Maybe he's going to give up on all of his misses, but it's going to be a tough situation here. So if I bet, what is he going to call with? He'll call with top pair. I think pocket pair below top pair. If I bet again, so if we go back, I bet 9 into a 12.5 pot. If I bet again, and if I bet, let's say 20, I kind of think pocket pair below top pair is going to fold. I think middle pair is going to fold. Weak pair is going to fold. I think the flush draw is going to call. I think the gut shots might still call. Open-ended straight draw might still call. So against this range, we're looking at 82% he's going to call. If we take out the gut shots, then that reduces it to 63%. So the gut shots increase our equity to 34. Remove them, our equity is only 20% if they call. Now, if we think he's going to call with the pocket pairs below top pair, and then flush draw and just open ended straight draw, we're at 33%. If I check, then I do think he's probably going to bet his entire range here, and that entire range gives us 44%. What did I do? I actually checked, and he checked behind. That's surprising. So that kind of has me questioning what's happening. Maybe he senses that maybe I have top pair. Because I think if I had top pair and he had top pair, I do think he's going to bet that. I think the over pair he doesn't have. I think 2 pair is probably going to bet. I think his set's going to bet. I think his straight's going to bet. After we checked, he's going to bet. Maybe I have, the flush draw, and I'm hoping for, easy showdown. So I think this starts to narrow his hand down to pocket pair below top pair, middle pair, weak pair, ace high hand, no made hands. So against that range, we're way ahead. So I think I do think I'm ahead at this point. And then the 10, I think, just further solidifies it, because 2 10s are out. I do think he would have raised, or he would have bet the turn if I checked to him with the 10. And now that another 10 came out, it makes it that much less likely that he actually has a 10 in his hand. So question is, do I bet? Do I check? I think if I bet, he might call with this pocket pair to below top pair. he might call just to see if I actually have the 10, because in his mind too, that 10 makes it less likely that I have a 10. And now I bet the flop because it got checked to me. I look like I may have given up on the turn, and now I'm trying to steal it again. So I think he could call pocket pair below top pair, could call middle pair, could call the weak pair. I don't think he'd call with ace high or the no mate hand. So I think in this situation, I may be able to go for a little bit of value with betting maybe half pot. What I don't want to do is bet and then have him raise me as a bluff. And I'm not sure if he can do that. That's a difficult situation. Raise. Let's see here. Raise bets. A raise. I guess I don't really see it. So 3-bet. I guess he'd make it 2-bet. That's what it would be. 0 out of 12. So I think I probably could have go for a little bit of value, and if he calls, I think he's going to call with those hands. I didn't. I checked it down, and he shows 4-5. So that's kind of interesting. Kind of matches. He had a pair. That's why he called. Okay, we had that in that hand. The turn gave him a pair with an open-ended straight draw. I think if I bet the turn, he calls or he raises, and I think I have to fold. Why? I think when I checked, maybe he got scared that now I'm going for the check raise. Who knows? I don't know. Or he's just not happy and is willing to take the free card to see if he hits a straight. Here, once a 10 came, I do think if I bet for value, if I bet 15 big blinds, he calls, and that's 15 more big blinds that I win. So I think I missed the value bet, the river value bet. All right, so those are 2 hands. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Look tomorrow for a few more hands.